kind of frame the mood for our discussion here today on the future of artificial intelligence and robotics. So can we roll that video, please? Very exciting. So again, joining us to my immediate left is Mr. Kahil Ruhana, who is the Deputy Director General, of Communications, Networks, and Technology for the European Commission. Next to him, in the center, Mr. Marek Rosa, the CEO and Chief Technical Officer of Good AI. And next to him, filling in, is Andreas Ebert, who is the EU Technical Officer for Microsoft. That's our panel here today. Wonderful, wonderful video. A little bit frightening. It's a kind of, but that's okay. That's what we're talking about when we talk about artificial intelligence. It's all the wonder and terror of the 21st century. So, quick note, as a matter of framing, the discussion that we're going to be having here today, and I hope it's a boisterous discussion. Please feel free, if you have ideas, to raise your hand, and I'll have a lot of questions, and I envision something of a good free-flowing discussion. But as a matter of framing, who here is familiar with the English origin of the word robot? Raise your hand. Are you Czech? Yes. It's a Czech term. It's originally a play by a wonderful Czech playwright named Karl Čapek, premiered in 1921. And it's the first English use of the word robot. The play is called Rossum's Universal Robots. And what's fascinating about it is that the play actually progresses exactly as almost every narrative about artificial intelligence that we've ever seen. So by the end of Act 1, robots have created enormous wealth for their original creator, who is an inventor named Rossum, a young entrepreneur sort of in the mold of Elon Musk. So they've created fabulous wealth. They've reshaped the global economy. By the end of Act 2, they've caused massive economic disruption and bankruptcy. And by the end of Act 3, they've revolted against humanity and caused the apocalypse. So I bring this up because I think it's a useful way to think about this problem. We invented a fear of robots right after inventing the idea of robots. And artificial intelligence is really the expansion of this same theme, this idea of service, mechanized, displacing first human workers and then humans because we can't control what we created. So, as we've seen, this is an idea that continues to capture the attention and the imagination of many captains of industry, many of our great thinkers, including, in the case of Elon Musk, someone who's both heavily invested in the future of artificial intelligence and also has a lot to say about its potential downsides. So let me begin with you, Marek, because you are the head of a startup that seeks to create something called general AI. So I'd like you to tell us a little bit about why on earth you would try to make such a terrifying thing and what that is.
So thank you. And First, let me talk about what is general AI and how it differs from narrow AI. So basically, narrow AI is what we have today. It's usually some AI technology used to solve problems in very specific and vertical domains. And it requires researchers and engineers to really fine-tune and design this AI algorithm for the particular problem. On the other side, general AI will bring us, because we don't have it yet, will bring us the possibility to have an AI system that can learn in a similar way as people, can learn gradually, accumulate skills one after another, use learned skills to learn new skills more efficiently, learn how to learn, and therefore making the next learning more efficient. And the reason why I am, and also my colleagues, why we are interested in this is basically that automating the intelligence, we see this as a best way how to solve everything else. You know, so instead of me working on like 100 different things that I would like to work, I would like to first create general AI and then use it to solve all the other things. So it's like a meta solution.
Okay. So this is an important distinction because we are surrounded by artificial intelligence all the time. We just don't perceive it as such, but it's definitely guiding aspects of traffic. It certainly guides a lot of transactions, a lot of economic logistics, factory logistics. Within the military space, increasing number of different operations have some narrow AI component. And general AI is kind of the dream. This is where we create a robust intelligence that has the capability that we associate with human intelligence, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it resembles or looks exactly like human intelligence. There's just sort of a parallel intelligence to our own, a thing that we've never actually created but dreamed to. So I'd like to turn to you, Kahil. In thinking about all of this, as somebody from a policy perspective, it's got to look like a lot of downside and unpredictability. What do you see as the potential in the next 5 to 10 years, the great potential upside of artificial intelligence, and what is the great fear or danger to avoid or mitigate?
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. Good morning, everyone. So I think artificial intelligence is not new. And we have had, I'll say, peaks of hype around artificial intelligence in the past, starting in the 70s, then the 80s, and those of you familiar with the area would have remembered, you know, these big hopes around artificial intelligence that I would describe in endowing artifacts with more capacity of autonomy. So, as Mark explained, learning and gaining skills and be able to act based on the skills. So, what is happening now is that I think technology, mainly computing power and the large amounts of data that we can gather and compute and store, gives that, I'll say that trend of endowing artifacts with more autonomy, more intelligence, gives it a new impulse, and we see it happening indeed. And as Mark said, it is indeed developing on specific applications. There are two big ones that we see today. I mean, if I simplify, what we call the embedded intelligence, or that's the intelligence that we put in articulated physical objects like robots. Mm-hmm. And that is developing with specific solutions for robots to gain more autonomy. And the other area that is developing also is in the area of big data and harnessing knowledge from data that would enable us to improve our decision support systems, our search engines, etc. Mm-hmm. So it's still and that's that area has been developing because of the development of deep learning, and that's, as I said, based on the capacity to handle data and compute with more power. Mm-hmm. And in these two areas, I think the developments are, you know, there is some convergence and basic technologies developing for both of them that could lead us to more generic AI in the future, indeed. And for both of them, there are opportunities and threats. And I think it's like every technology, you know, if you look at electricity in the 19th century, people would have thought that it's going to be very dangerous, etc. And I'm sure there were articles, not probably as diffused as today, that describe the technology with a lot of fear. And indeed, those fears are always justified, because if you're not able to master the technology, if you're not able to put around it all the framework that would make it safe and used properly by citizens and businesses, it can create big dangers and threats. But I think I have an optimistic view on the way things would develop for both areas. I think the opportunities are huge. The more you know intelligence and smartness into the artifacts, the more things they can do for you. You can improve the safety of the products, and the services that are behind them. You can bring additional comfort. You can bring additional resource efficiency, additional security. For both of these big application areas that are developing, we see it. These are huge opportunities for new business development and for new ways to address our big societal challenges. And we see the big breakthroughs will come in the health area. Today, one of the biggest areas for development of robots is robotics for health. And we could see what it can bring. But there are the fears of our citizens. And we have a Eurobarometer that we have every year on the different technology, including robotics at the EU level. And we show that most of our citizens, 70%, think robots are a good thing, for example.
Yeah.
But we tell them, will you like the robot to be your doctor? They say, no. So I think they think it will bring a lot, but there are the fears that this machine will do something for us that we can't control.
Yeah.
So huge opportunities, new ways of addressing societal challenges, which I think some of the economic analysis do not grasp, because technology opens up new doors for new business development, for new ways of addressing societal challenges, and hence new jobs, etc. The opportunities are there, and I see the opportunities also on the deep learning and all the generic AI that could develop after, new applications, new services. And the threats are, threats on our safety, threats on our security, threats on jobs, threats on the way our lives could change in the future, and that the different levels of automation show already that these threats are there, that we need to address. I can go through all the solutions, what you can do, but what we can do. But what I think is that for the 5 to 10 years, to conclude, we can see a lot of new opportunities coming from increased automation or increased autonomy that you can bring into all types of artifacts, and the increased smartness that you could put in our web and on the internet in general. In the 5-10 years, I don't think it is at the level of the hype that we see in the movies yet. I mean, if we look at the technologies, we run in the Commission one of the largest programs worldwide on robotics, and I could see what robots can do at the latest development. Very difficult to grasp. Manipulation is still very rudimentary. Yeah. So when I see some of the movies, I say, well, I mean, it's far from reality. Yeah. It's really far from reality. So 5-10 years, there'll be increased automation, increased autonomy that will bring into our cars, with the autonomous vehicles, of course, that will bring into all these machines. And I think the real challenge for policymaking is to strike the right balance and not to start regulating too early on the threats like liability, like safety, security, all the ethics related to that. Not to regulate too early, to make sure that we let the innovation develop, but at the same time remain vigilant in terms of developing the skills of our workers, because digital transformation will attend, or including with artificial intelligence, will affect the jobs of the future. Make sure that we keep our workforce up to date on skills, and educate our next generation on what these technologies and what they can do. So we need to remain vigilant on the regulatory part, not to regulate too fast, and at the same time make sure that the opportunities are available for our businesses and our citizens.
Right. So I want to get to Andreas in a second to talk a little bit about where Microsoft and some of your peer companies see the potential and the peril from an investment standpoint, from a company standpoint, in artificial intelligence in the next 10 years.
No, thank you so much for having me here. In a way, and before I do this one, I had a kind of flashback, not a flashback, but a kind of surprising thing when I saw the title of the session, How to Outsmart the AI. Triggered things like 100 years ago when we talked about innovation called car, how to run faster than a car or to lift more than a forklift kind of stuff. So I do think that the title suggests that we should be better than AI in things AI could do. I would rather flip the argument around and would say, how can we develop intelligent technologies to support and enhance human ingenuity in a way, which is the positive, the glass half full kind of perspective on this one. So kind of, let's say, initial observation when I saw the title of our session in a way. So I do think there's a huge opportunity, agreeing, I think, with both panelists over here as well. I want to just reiterate how fundamental the kind of transformation is. For the last 50 years, we spent, as industry, as society, most of the time to understand computers. And what's happening the last couple of years, and Khalil mentioned that AI had been around since the 56, I think the famous Dartmouth conference 56 was the kickstart officially of this one. But it's only the last couple of years that a couple of factors came together, leapfrogging many of the kind of developments, and machine learning being one part of AI, only really kick-started 7 years ago. And in 7 years, everybody of us has experienced, let's say, this kind of enhancing your own kind of, let's say, experience with technology, be it routing on maps, speed, translation of services, voice interaction with your devices, which wouldn't be possible with many forms of narrow AI. I fully agree that the overall objective long-term might be more the generic learning capability, but it is really very, very short from a societal perspective. The technology really spread out to everybody's individual lives in this way. So our approach and the approach we've taken for the last couple of years around AIs that we want to, and this is the kind of official title, sorry for using a kind of branding name on this one, is democratizing AI, because we do think that those kind of technologies enhancing capabilities of existing systems, enhancing systems that you can use instead of, for instance, imagine if you're from a kind of, hopefully not, but from a human perspective, not able to use a keyboard or a pen, that you can do voice interaction. AI is a technology helping those people to get deeper included in society's activities in a way. It's something which we're really working day over day over day, that we reduce the threshold that those kind of technologies can be part of our interaction with technology. And what we also want to do is that it shouldn't be in the hands of a few companies in a way, and I would guess that currently only a handful of companies have the majority of AI resources, people, skills like that, and we want to contribute that this becomes a much broader kind of ecosystem thing, that millions of developers on the planet can reduce their effort to participate in developing innovative solutions, helping addressing some of the societal kind of things, sometimes creating new business models, sometimes new just products in a way. And so we are trying to contribute on this one. And the last thing in this kind of four-step strategy around democratizing, we invest heavily in our own infrastructure, which is called the cloud, in a way that we create and offer what's called an AI supercomputer, again, creating much more performance necessary, and AI is hugely dependent on high, let's say, high-performance computing resource on this one, that is not only available, for instance, to us and a few other companies, but it's available to millions of developers and hundreds of millions of people to a much more economic, kind of realistic level.
Okay, wonderful. So I want to remind everybody, please feel free to participate in this conversation. Raise your hands if you have a question, and we're going to get a microphone to you. And I, of course, have plenty of my own. In hearing you talk about the AI winter, for instance, Cahill, this is a period in the 1980s where there was a lot of enthusiasm about the future of AI, and it all kind of fell apart because of a couple of reasons. But robotic vision and the creation of artificial intelligence that can manipulate the world around it has been a key area of enthusiasm and disappointment. I remember in 1966, Seymour Papert suggested that robotic vision, teaching robots to understand the three-dimensional environment, he thought this was going to be a summer program for master's students, and we still haven't really mastered it. But there has been a shift. There's been a real shift, in part because of big data and the ability to teach systems on the basis of an enormous amount of evidence how to do something better than was previously thought possible. and also just because of the exponential race and factors affecting miniaturization of computation, the ability to squeeze more integrated circuits together. This is, Moore's law. So I wonder if, thinking about this, you think of this statistic. We've heard, this is a recent statistic from Accenture, predicts that AI is going to double economic growth in about 15 years. At the same time, PwC has projected that artificial intelligence and particularly automation could result in 40% of job losses in the United States. So we would lose 40% of the jobs in the United States as a result of factors relating to automation. So how do you double economic output and also lose about half your jobs and deal with that? Those two futures that to me seem to be competitive from a policy perspective. How do you make a decision around that?
Absolutely. I think it's one of the most one of the biggest challenge that at least Western economies are facing today with the development of technologies. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure the rest of the world will also go into this. And it's the challenge of making sure that the effect of technology is widely spread across the economy. Mm-hmm. You can increase your productivity, you can increase your GDP, you can have growth, but at the same time, if ultimately the trend of, the figures that are related to the wealth creation across the economy are not following, you're creating large inequalities, and we have disruptions, as we've seen recently across a lot of our member states, but also around the world. Mainly in Western economies so far. So I think the question is not only AI, it's the impact of technology and digital technologies on our economy and society and distribution of wealth.
Yeah.
That's the issue that we're facing. I think the solution is probably what Andreas started saying, is making sure that digital technologies and automation and artificial intelligence are widely spread so that every business, every company in any sector of the economy can make benefit out of it to innovate in its products, to innovate in its processes, to improve its processes, to innovate in its business models, and to make sure that these benefits are spread all across the economy and society. And for Europe, this is one of our main targets.
Okay.
Just to say that's I think one way to address that issue. It's not only AI, automation is part of it. So all levels of automation will bring in a transformation to our jobs, transformation to our businesses, etc. Making sure that first. Second, I think what's important is that make sure that our citizens have the necessary education, the necessary skills to be able to cope with digital transformation. That's a very important challenge for all economies today. Okay. And I think it's it is not taken at the right level yet, given what is at stake in terms of policy making.
That's what I want to nail down on. It's not given at the right level yet. When you talk to policymakers across Europe and around the world that you talk to, do you think that they have an appreciation for how very economically or labor disruptive automation and AI could be in the next 10 years? Or are they sort of like our own Treasury Secretary in the United States, Steve Mnuchin, who said that he's not particularly worried about job displacement as a result of artificial intelligence? Whereabout do they fall?
I think it's not as bleak as some might, or some reports might show today. I think we have very good examples of economies that, including within the EU, that have been able to cope with the digital transformation of their industry, digital transformation of the service sector. And if you look, just an observation, If I take the EU member states, today those that have invested the most in robotization and automation and the transformation of their economy are those that have the lowest unemployment rate. Germany is one of the highest robotized nation worldwide, where the number of robots per capita is the highest in the Union and one of the highest worldwide.
Yeah.
And other member states that have not invested in this, including big ones, have some of the lowest robotization or automation rates in the Western economies, and they have the highest unemployment rate. So I think there is an observation that we do. So it is manageable. This is what I want to see. It is manageable if you develop the right ecosystems, if you train your workforce, if you adapt your workforce, and if it's done collectively between unions, between social society, and between all actors across society and the public administration and businesses, it can work.
Okay, let's, if you've got a question, a comment, again, please feel free to raise your hand. We've got one. All right.
Hello, my name is Veronika Antal-Horváth from the Antal József Knowledge Center from Budapest. And I have a question regarding the regulation and automation. What will happen if a driverless car hits somebody? Who will be responsible for that? And my second question is, can or will machine learning software do machine learning software? Thank you.
All right, very good question. What are you seeing in terms of self-driving car policy? Go ahead.
Both things. I leave it to my panelist colleague on the regulatory kind of thinking on this one, but just from a technology and ethical kind of perspective. What you see is that we are entering a phase where this discussion, what should happen from a liability perspective also, but also from a software development perspective should happen. I give you a very simple example. Imagine you are developing a self-driving car and you need to accommodate with software a situation which is an emergency. Should the software make a decision saying, I'd rather harm my driver, or should I rather harm a person on the street which is outside of the car I'm driving in a way, which creates the kind of interesting challenge saying, should software be in a position to make a judgment call saying who to harm? On one side, you could say, as a society, saying we don't want to get in the situation that machines should make a decision. On the other side, if you currently look, I don't know the numbers for Hungary, but let's say in Germany or in Austria, in Germany, I think there are 5,000 people dying each year on the street, and most of the accidents are driven by potential human drivers in a way. So there is agreement in industry and academics that, for instance, if a society would completely transition to self-driving cars, you would have not 5,000 tragic accidents and incidents in Germany, for instance, in maybe 500. So if you don't embark on this journey for self-driving cars, maybe you could rescue 4,000 of them every single year. So I do think this kind of very tricky, not tricky, but challenging kind of situations need to be discussed at societal level, because each society have different reference points, ethical rules, cultural backgrounds, objectives in a way, and I don't think that any single actor, be it the Commission, be it your national government, be it then the company developing the car, be the technology provider, should be in a position to make this decision what is right and what is wrong. And I think we are squarely in the kind of ethical conversation on this one. And coming back to the kind of, could machine learning software write machine learning software? That's the objective I think Marek is working on, because at the end of the day there's this notion of called technical singularity, the kind of doomsday when technology has more intelligence than the humanity kind of thing. And there are books out there, and I don't know when it will happen, maybe it will, and it's just a matter of when. And if you take this kind of point, two preconditions are necessary. One thing is that software or computers have a generic learning ability, that they can learn whatever task at hand. And I think we are still outsmarting any technology on the generic learning ability, because we can take a person saying, be an expert in 5 years from now on robotics, or 5 years from now on any other kind of craft in a way. And the second capability necessary is that you, quote, can reproduce yourself, which is what we currently think as a kind of human and from a living being kind of, let's say, differentiating thing. And it triggers an interesting kind of question saying, what will happen if software can write software reproducing itself in a way? But this is something where I do think society has decades to make a decision, because I don't think it will happen in the next 10 years.
Okay, very briefly, where are we on liability policy in terms of self-driving cars in Europe? Do we have one? Should we get one soon?
Yeah, it's one of the areas we're working on now very intensively. And this is what I mentioned this is what I meant when I mentioned that we should not jump onto regulation very quickly, because I think we have to learn first what are the various parameters and how to handle them. It's a difficult question. I mean, and I tell you, we don't have the full answer yet.
Yeah.
Who would be liable? I mean, fully liable or should there be full liability in case of an accident where an autonomous vehicle, for example, or autonomous robot has, was the cause, and if the cause is not directly related to any defect coming from the manufacturer or from the user, but if the defect is coming from the learning algorithm itself.
Okay.
And from the learning capacity of the vehicle. Now, what we're doing in order to address that issue, now we're consulting, and we have a big consultation on what we call the Product Liability Directive. So that's the law that handles the liability issues of products in general. So we're consulting to see what we gather as views, and consultation is still ongoing. We're also looking at testing and experimentation, and we issued a strategy on data in general, how to exploit data, including for machine learning. And within that, we engaged into testing, large-scale testing and experimentation around the autonomous vehicle. And we're setting up now corridors across Europe to be able to test and experiment and see what we can learn from this.
Yeah.
I think that's the way we're trying to progress on this issue. Consultation. We're trying to test and experiment. The corridors should be running throughout 2018, hopefully. And we will try out of that to gather enough information to see how to adapt current regulatory frameworks.
So experimentation and then regulation.
Testing.
Right. That's I think something a
Just
new way to approach policy that we don't see
because
happen.
it's not only legal. I mean, there's the legal issue. There's the economics also behind it.
Yeah.
If you put the liability, for example, 100% just on the user, so the owner of the machine, given the complexity of the technology, you might end up with no one buying at all. So you have to have what we call shared liability. These are the things that are developing as concepts.
Right. So, Marek, I wonder if you could touch a little bit on the difficult problem of actually trying to teach cars to understand human behavior in a driver context, and also how realistic is this idea of self-driving cars within a time frame of like 10 years, do you think?
So I've been quite surprised by the success in this field and how machine learning, what kind of problems it was able to solve. On the other side, there are still some last mile problems in self-driving. So even if your car can drive you through highway and maybe in cities when there is not complicated situation, but then it fails in certain situations, and you will not want to rely on the car, so it fails in some situations, or you will have to take the steering wheel and finish it yourself. So the thing is that there may be too many complex situations that the current deep learning will not be able to solve, without some another technological breakthroughs. But on the other side, I may be surprised because, like, basically every month, I'm surprised by what people are able to achieve or accomplish with deep learning. So it's possible that without some new technology, better technology than deep learning will not be able to do this, but also it's possible that due to sheer amount of data, examples and humans, smart humans designing these self-driving algorithms will be able to get even to these last mile problems. And
if you were to make a data set that would be critical to self-driving cars actually learning about human behavior, maybe outfitting people with different sensors or things like this, what's the data set that you feel missing for deep learning to take us to a point where autonomous driving becomes more realistic?
I think the AI that will be learning to drive in all these situations need to experience the very same situations that we as drivers experience, and we'll have to have training examples that will train it to react in the same way as a human would react. The thing is that it's still possible that this training set will not contain all the nuances, because there may be situations, or there may be missing situations that we as humans learn while developing in our childhood, while interacting with other people, and so on. And if these situations will not be present in the training data, they may be missing, and then the car will basically not know how to react in such situations. So, for example, when I see a person standing on a side of a road, my brain, because I know what the person is probably thinking, will be like, okay, is he going to step there or not? Is he drunk? Not? And I will like start running all these simulations in my head. And if the car doesn't have the same experience, like the car doesn't know what a drunk person means or something like this, it will not be able to simulate the similar scenarios. On the other side, if the designers of these algorithms and the teachers of these algorithms will include all these potential situations in the self-driving car, maybe they will just hit this low-hanging fruit of what they need. So I think it's doable. Like I wouldn't rule it out completely, even without having general AI.
Okay. First, we're going to go to Everett, and then we have some audience.
I'd like to add on something to really keep the kind of innovation dimension in this whole conversation. There's so many ways how you can measure and observe innovation. You can look at the front end of the innovation train. What are we introducing as new technology, new process, new regulations in our society? But you can also take a look at the innovation at the back end of this train. What are we able to leave behind in a way? And use a very simple example. If you're in an organization 20 years ago and 99% of your employees had an individual email box, and the other one didn't have it, you still couldn't shut down the previous business process of sharing information. Only going from 99 to 100% allowed you to leave 50 years of paper-based interaction in your company behind. Otherwise, you would left 1% of your employees out, which you shouldn't, in a way. So you can look at innovation. We introduced the email system as a company for many people, and you can look at we reached 100%. And in the area of cars, think through innovation in a similar way. So, for instance, currently a ton of computing power, algorithms, software design, sophistication, innovation is being spent to help cars understand, for instance, the street signs. Stop, left turn, right turn, in a way. Imagine a world where human drivers aren't part of the equation anymore. We don't need street signs anymore. And you could get to a way that cars would, for instance, approach a crossing, and maybe it's just future kind of conversation, maybe the cars would engage in an auctioning system saying whoever is willing to pay more, micropayments kind of stuff, will get preferential treatment crossing this crossing faster than anybody else in a way. So think through many, many layers of potential innovations where complete ecosystems can be created, changed in a way which we cannot foresee today, and we're only using, let's say, artificial intelligence to create a migration scenario where humans and self-driving cars at the same time on the street, but think about 20, 30, 40 years in the future, maybe there's not a single human driver anymore in the equation.
Is that something that Microsoft is actively now talking about, this idea of transaction taxes for autonomous systems as they encounter each other?
Yes, we do have a chief economist since about 10, 15 years in a way, because many of those things which are part of consideration which is called market design considerations. That the market design is basically defined by the interactions and the economic interactions between different parties, but it's just looking into this one. I don't have a solution and we don't have a business plan on this one, but I want to create visibility that innovation can happen at many, many different layers of the innovation.
That's it's such an interesting news item. I know, having talked to Sebastian Thrun, who's the original creator of the Google self-driving car, he says that one of the biggest problems that he encounters now is exactly this intersection problem. You can teach the cars to understand the rules of the road very easily. When they get to intersections, they don't understand that people tend to be jerks. And they kind of go out a little bit first. And so teaching the car to understand that when the human is impatiently pushing into the intersection, even if it's not his turn, you have to let him go, because the car would just obey the rules. And people aren't like that. I'm sure I would wind up paying that impatience tax like every day. So let's go here to the audience and a question from one of the participants.
Thank you. First question is short term for Mr. Rouhana. What kind of cooperation do you have with, maybe through the other DGs, whether DEFCO, DG NEAR, and others, in terms of international cooperation on these issues, especially on the regulatory way, but also on cooperation with other technology sectors outside the EU? Because my fear, while I totally understand and support the idea of not over-regulating too fast, is to reach a situation where, because of the weakness of the judiciary system, legislative systems in neighboring countries, you'll create a system where in the EU or elsewhere you have ethical considerations, liability considerations, whereas it's a complete jungle outside, where innovators do exist and operate. So it would create a system that is really difficult. That's why judiciary systems need to be ready, need to be informed early on. And a more general question, similar to the one that the colleague earlier asked, what about the implications on politics, on elections, understanding people's behavior and who decides what on elections, and so its implication on social contracts and democracy in general?
Okay, so briefly, large policy frameworks for thinking through some of these issues, and then is AI going to affect our elections in unpredictable ways? We'll open that second one up to everybody, I think.
Yeah, on the international cooperation on the legal and ethical issues regarding artificial intelligence is on radar 100%. Today we have dialogues related to the digital transformation of the economy and society that we have with all our trading partners, US, Japan, China, Korea, and we have it also part of our all neighboring policies. To mention that, these issues are new, and we started introducing them in our dialogues, I'd say, in 2016 and now 2017. And even inside the institutions, EU institutions, or in the member states with whom we have dialogue all the time on these issues, I think the awareness of the importance of these issues was really started really in 2016, 17. So these are new and they are on our radar, but it's a very good point indeed. Very, very good point indeed. As you see, this is why we're not, jumping on regulation, because we want to make sure that we get a better understanding of its implication inside the EU and on our trading with our and our relations with the rest of the world.
Yeah. So moving on to the second part, this question of artificial intelligence and its effect on micro-targeting of political advertisement, I think, is basically how you reduce that. Is this something that is a realistic concern? Is it over something that we shouldn't worry about?
I think we should, but before I start addressing this one, I want to come back to your first question around the kind of regulatory, or let's say, the competition between countries, let's call it this way, because coming back to the original question around there's so much opportunity, productivity increase has been mentioned by the moderator, by Patrick, and on the other side there will be job losses. Let me just turn the wheel of time 100 years back. In my country, I'm from Austria, I don't know the numbers for other countries, but I would assume they're similar. 50% of the population worked in agriculture. Today it's 0.7%. And we don't have 49.3% unemployment rate. So we had an opportunity, and we had as society a strategy to transition from a previous job model, agriculture, to service industry and all these kind of things. But the thing is that it happened over a course of 100 years. And what's happening these days is that given the kind of economic models and the progress we have with digital technologies, we need to consider similar kind of dependencies, that on one side opportunity is created, on the other side there will be some side effects on this one. And the interesting thing is that it might happen in a single human generation, which is normally 30 years kind of thing, which changes fundamentally a couple of things. So for instance, you can't pass on the baton from one generation to the next one, so you need to learn yourself how to basically get an opportunity for yourself in your professional life, in one generation, on one side. And what the second thing is that countries and societies make different choices. Some societies potentially scared by the new development, and by the way, the University of California Berkeley Bree Institute is looking since many, many years how technology is changing over the last 200 years, societal kind of cohesion. Professor John Zeisman, in case you want to look it up. And so whenever there is a kind of new development, society make a choice saying, we don't want to embark too fast on this one, which is a rightful choice if a society is making this kind of choice. But maybe the neighboring society is making a different choice, saying we want to embark it as fast as possible. And then you see that potentially competition between those two societies on welfare, on progress, on safety, on whatever kind of social cohesion they're interested in, gets to a point of tension because this society is developing faster than the other one, and then potentially there is a rebalancing activity. And I do think similar things will happen in the adoption of AI as well, that we need to have this conversation. Don't get me wrong, we need to have the ethical conversation about how is the proper balance between the benefits and the drawbacks on this one. But I do expect that different regions, different countries will come to different conclusions. Should we rather slow down the transition, or should we go full speed ahead? And this is a societal conversation, not an individual company conversation.
All right. Briefly, because I want to make sure there's lots of time for audience questions, can you touch on this question of the applications of artificial intelligence for changing and influencing public perception, either politically or in other areas? Is this...
Absolutely. You are spot on this one, and I don't think that any individual or any individual company can provide a solution. But there's a ton of suggested steps going forward. So for instance, we created a partnership called Partnership on AI, and by the way, it's open for new members in a way, so just look it up, Partnership on AI, where large companies started to create a platform for having exactly this conversation. And I give a couple of examples about the dimension you just mentioned from a democratic perspective. How should we address bias in data, bias in algorithms, but even bias in society? Because we do have the situation that our notion about the world is founded in the culture, in the background, and in the cultural concepts we have in our societies in a way. And so if you develop a software with this kind of embedded, not all, sometimes explicit kind of, let's say, knowledge that your background is, let's say, Euro-Asian kind of people, your face recognition software might not recognize them people with different colors, in a way. And so we do have this early, let's say, evidence that those things need to be addressed, but it's not to be addressed only by technology, but it needs to be addressed by a common understanding, by ethical rules, by moral kind of judgment, in a way, which is an interesting kind of intersection between classical technology developments versus societal kind of things on this one. And just to close on this one, it's also the kind of thing, imagine that many people are depending on technology to make decisions in a way. And the ultimate decision in democracy is, for instance, elections. How should technology in the future behave if you're asking in the voting booth, who should I elect? Should we stay away? Should this be a voluntary process? Should we give basically your kind of a filter bubble, a kind of reinforcement, go and elect who you want to elect in a way? So it's a tricky question, which not a single actor can answer from my perspective. That's the reason why we were among the founding members of Partnership of AI. And if there's any company interested in joining, please let me know.
Okay. Well, let's go to, we've got a few questions here. Let's go right over here.
Hi, my name is Kim Bong, and I'm a Canadian from Toronto, which is a great center for AI.
Yeah.
My question is actually for our friend from Microsoft. You've talked about the importance of democratizing AI, that it should not be controlled by the few. And that sounds great.
Yeah.
And makes for a great soundbite. In fact, I tweeted it out.
Yeah.
My question for you, though, is as a corporation and as agents of shareholders, your objective is to maximize shareholder value, which would suggest the concentration of power in your hands. So how do you reconcile these two challenges?
Thanks so much for an interesting question. And let me qualify democratizing. Democratizing from a political process is not the objective what we embarked on. Democratization is giving as many people as possible access, and the benefit of this kind of technology is the notion of democratization on technology. With regard to your second question about how to reconcile the kind of societal responsibility and the shareholder responsibility, this is the reason why we started our AI journey with a pledge our Chief Executive Officer, Satya Nadella, made, calling, I need to read it because it's such a long thing, data ethics principles for humanistic approach to AI. So what we started with is 6 statements around what will be the guiding principle how we develop software, AI software, in a way. So let me just read because I think it might be interesting. It needs to be designed to assist humanity. Coming back, we shouldn't replace humanity, we should assist humanity. It should be transparent, and this creates all this notion around algorithmic transparency, algorithmic accountability, everything which is, I think, a topic which need to be debated. Then maximize efficiencies without destroying the dignity of people is an important component, that we don't roll over the dignity of people by saying, look, technology is making a decision who is going to be promoted in a company or not, for instance. It's a dignity problem, not a kind of productivity problem in this context. It should be designed for privacy, and I do think Europe is really at the leading edge, globally at the leading edge, to think through how in a digital-based economy, privacy and data protection should be taken to the next level. And I do applaud the Commission's effort not only to create a digital single market political vision, which I think is the right strategy to do, but also to create a kind of common understanding that 28 different data protection rules don't support the vision that we should have around data protection in a way. So how do we basically leverage then this progress on the data protection side? And it gives you the tension point in data protection versus AI, healthcare. The European data protection regulation, and just to be clear, Microsoft fully supports the journey towards data protection, but I want to point out a kind of conflict of policies, let's call it this way. Healthcare. Most European countries are challenged from a budget perspective to deliver the healthcare services efficiently to a growing stakeholder of people who need support. And we have a growing group of elderly people which need to be supported as well in the future as well. Machine learning, and Marek pointed out, need huge amount of data to be sophisticated in the way how they understand and contribute to solving these problems. We do have a concept in the data protection regulation, which is based on the consent given that you as a data subject, as a citizen, can define what the processor is doing with your data. So if you are a healthcare provider, if you are a university working in healthcare research, and your objective is to reduce the European, let's say, fatality on cancer, obesity, or whatever kind of thing, you need access to data. And so what is the proper balance between, on one side, protecting the data for the individual patient, on one side, versus allowing researchers to get to the next level, helping to reduce our fatality rate on cancer by 50% in a way. And I don't know what the proper solution is, but we want to contribute to this awareness. This need to be discussed, because if you would be on the extreme and saying everything should be protected and nobody should care about, versus everything should be open, I think both extremes are not the right thing. It's similar to the kind of community thinking you have in a small municipality. If you have one municipality where everybody is trying to optimize his own life individually, I think welfare, safety is lower progressing versus a community where a couple of things are being shared and agreed upon who is doing the infrastructure investment on building the bridge, on building the kind of road. And I do think even in the data-driven economy, we need to create this kind of balancing point. What should be shared? under which condition, how protected, but it should create opportunity.
And I think this question of democracy and democratizing technology is really core to the question of what happens with AI in the future. And it's this question of Rossum, right? Like the individual entrepreneur makes a pile of money and everyone else uses the service, but the means of production aren't shared, and so the wealth is concentrated. There's another very good sort of fictional recreation of that. It's called Player Piano by Kurt Vonnegut, where he envisions a single corporation that has like 300 employees that provides robotic services to the entire world. It's a great book. He originally wrote it about IPM, and it's this question of market capitalization per employee in a software company versus output. So, Microsoft has, at the time he wrote it, IBM was making about $300,000 per employee. Today, Microsoft makes about $700,000 per employee, and Google makes over $1 million per employee. So, to Marek, as the young Rossum, as the voice of AI entrepreneurs of the future, how do you approach this question of sharing potentially enormous wealth from future AI breakthroughs? And for instance, are you a fan of the idea of universal basic income? What should we be paying attention to policy-wise, distribution-wise? What should we avoid?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. So regarding the universal basic income, I think it's a maybe it's not the best answer to this problem, but at least it's helping to ask the right question, like how to help people in the future, decades, when the automation will basically take all the jobs, because the robots or AI will be able to do everything better than people and cheaper, faster. And I think the economy will just not let us do anything else than let the robots do the work, even the creative work. And so in this situation, I think something like maybe not exactly universal basic income, but some kind of altruism with the other people will come in hand. Of course, there still will be people exchanging some work between each other and exchanging the value and so on, but maybe a majority of the people will not need to work, because the robots or the AI will be able to provide all the value for us. So it will be like robots producing all these things and people just using it. I think it's not as simple as I just said. Like, of course, it will be a little bit more complex. And regarding the sharing of this, like if one group of people will have the robots will be the first. In the literature, it's called a singleton. Like you will have the first strongest AI, and then there are different scenarios possible, because the AI or the people who control it can really start making sure that there will not be the other AIs. That's one risk. Another risk is that there will be some internal conflict even in this group, which can go in a wrong way. There can be a problem with value alignment, so the AI will not have its values aligned even with its creators. This can be a problem. Or understanding problem, which is that the AI will not really understand what the creators wanted to do. There will be some confusion. And if you let it run for a few cycles, and the cycles are building on the previous cycles and so on, it's very hard to foresee where the system will actually evolve and how damaging it can be. So I think it's a good question. My personal answer to this is that if, for example, we in my company get to develop general AI first, then we would try to help as many people as possible with the fruits of this technology. Like I cannot talk about or for the other people or for the other companies or countries that are developing this, but this would be my goal. So again, I would of course use the AI for the stuff that I'm interested in, but I will also help the other people. And but like people may not believe me or trust me, like that's all possible. So I think it's also very interesting to start investigating these, let's call it like game theoretical scenarios, where there are different actors, they are at different level of progress, different level of trust between each other and so on. And at this moment, I don't have a clear answer how to make sure that we can safely go through all these stages.
Yeah.
And I don't know no one who has the right answer. The people that are interested in AI safety and these AI futures and stuff, they're still looking for the right ways how to mitigate these risks.
Well, I think it's a bit of a jungle right now, really, because what we're talking about is a lot of potential wealth concentrated in the hands of very few people, and at some point there might be a bit of a conflict internally about democratizing services, as you say, in a way that's broadly beneficial to humanity, that perhaps eats into the bottom line. Right now that's made it sort of a company by company, entrepreneur by entrepreneur level, absent of any larger legislation or tax agenda. And in the future, this might change. But let's go to the audience for another round of questions. You've been very patient right here. Yes.
And as a reward, can I have 2 questions? Well, if we have time,
right.
perhaps. Okay. My name is Andrea Cox, Digital Intelligence Slovakia. Policy making. 130 years ago, there were cars that were only used by very few. Nowadays, we have education for even kids in primary schools, even kindergarten, about traffic rules. Right. How do we join all the discussion that we are now having with the education? Because we all know that digital skills should be also accompanied by digital literacy skills. Mm-hmm. So is there a push? Thank you. And the second one is the moment we mention software, nowadays we think about cyber attacks. So, for example, do you use white hats? Also thinking about, testing who is going to hack a self-driving car? Thank you.
Yes, very good questions. How do we educate the youth of the future for a future dominated by artificial intelligence?
Very good. Allow me just to comment on the subject of democratization. I think that was of AI, and then because it's related to the skills in cybersecurity as well. But just to say that, in terms of regulation or policy making, how to handle the issue of dominance, in our market economies, have market dominance is not the issue, is the abuse of your dominant position to stifle competition. And we have in the EU one of the most efficient competition policy has shown with time. And there are means to block the abuse of market dominance, as we've seen recently, even with large companies and giants that sometimes seem to be unattackable. And I think the first thing we're looking at as a policy making is to make sure that we're still, with our competition mechanism, competition rules and the mechanisms that are behind them, we can cope with the fast development of technology. And I think it needs some adaptation to make sure that we can expose first, using competition rule, avoid the blocking of innovation, because that's the key issue. In order not to have to have innovation, value creation, and the happy few, you need to make sure that the innovation is possible for the widest range. That's very important for us. Now, we can't do it exposed. You could do it ex ante, and this is, the things we're looking at. So try to find means ex ante, because you cannot go, it goes very fast to exposed. You could do it ex ante in terms of policy making, in terms of rules, as we've done in the telecom market. We're currently looking at data and see whether for data, because that's the issue ultimately, for the question from our colleagues from Toronto. It's the issue of access to data and what you could do with data. And we're looking at data, whether we need to legislate ex ante, and in the coming year, we will be coming with proposals, whether we need to legislate ex ante on the access to data and on other things that are related to the tools for data or not. Now, that's one way of ensuring in a market economy that you're not killing innovation or concentration, the value of innovation, into the happy few. That's in case there is an abuse of market dominance. That's one thing we're really following very, very carefully, and I think this is one of our strategy for digital single market, as Andreas mentioned, and it's a big challenge, but in the EU we're working on it. I think on educational skills, you're totally right. It is the key issue. What we've done since this, since 3 years now, we have created a sort of coalition between industry and the member states around the digital skills and how they could be brought in at the earliest level, and how can they be also part of the lifelong learning across the EU. And it's something now that we see it in all member states with reflection how to introduce digital skills as quickly as possible. But it's not only public sector, it's also something that the private sector is helping doing. I think we will see changes in the coming year or two on the educational systems across the EU. And I've seen it from the plans that the member states are having now to update our educational systems. And we see digital skills now as part of all lifelong learning schemes across the EU. I think it's very important and will continue with us. The problem is that digital skills were introduced as gadgets and I would say, additions added into education at the beginning and in the last 10 years and with very bad experiences. Digital skills will have to be taught in the future as you teach mathematics, physics, or languages. They have to be part of our numerical curriculum. And why not? So I think, and that's coming. Yeah, that's coming.
I want to ask that same thing of Marek, because I have a sense of what digital skills is, but I'm not sure we're teaching the right digital skills. When I was a kid, my digital skill class was typing. Like you learned how to type. It was like kind of a crazy thing. The idea of teaching a kid now Pascal or even a very particular programming language, even if it's Python, seems like you might be sacrificing creativity to focus on one particular method of approaching technology that's going to be obsolete in 5 years because of accelerations in technology. So, Marek, to your mind, what are the most important digital skills to teach kids at a level that where they might be able to do something with them?
So maybe instead of focusing on some really very specific and let's call it like narrow digital skills, I would focus on the general skills. So just like with this general AI that we are building, we are kind of avoiding the narrow approach because every narrow domain that you master will become obsolete very shortly. Like that's the world we are going to live in, and we are already in this world, and it will be just accelerating. So. What is more efficient is to be expert at this field, or to be an expert, how to become an expert in any field that I may need in the future. Or to put it another way, it's like learn how to learn or learn to learn, these meta skills. And I think they are more important than knowing Pascal or DOS or Windows or something like this, because like this day is one thing, another day it will be different thing. And there has been actually some studies where when they trained students or when they started to teach them how to learn, their capacity to learn the specific topics actually increased because they realized what skills they're using to learn new skills. It wasn't just like, I need to learn this thing, so I will memorize this, so I can pass the exams, but actually I will learn that if I use this skill to understand this thing and then other skill to maybe have some dialogue with someone and learn that thing using that way, my ability to learn any new problem or to adapt novel and unseen problems will be much better. So this is more important for me. So just like I don't want to be building narrow AI, I would also not be, like if I was a student, I would not be investing my time in learning just some specific things, but I would rather focus on how to master the meta skills.
That sounds like a wonderful plug for humanities education, which I'm a big fan of. So let's have another question here from the audience while we still have a little bit of time right here in the second row.
I think there was a question on cyber.
Sorry. On cybersecurity, artificial intelligence to cybersecurity, and then we'll go to another question. Sorry, go ahead. Yes. Yes, this is Microsoft here. This is a very good question
May
for
I?
Microsoft. Yeah.
Thank you so much for asking a question, because I thought the title of this whole conference is Global Security. So cybersecurity is, of course, a hugely important topic in a way. And it funnels back into the kind of education thing as well, because digital literacy is one of the preconditions that you know how to cross the digital highway safely in a way. And what we've seen is that, for instance, and you mentioned cars 100 years ago, our generations had a kind of perspective that parents are in a position to help kids learn how to safely cross a street, wait until the car is passing by, and maybe the car is fast or slow, and then you can go before or after the car. What we experience is a one generation kind of gap, that the parental generation is not experienced in personal kind of experiences how to cross digitally safe the digital highway safely in a way. So I do think that when our kids are parents, this kind of gap is closing down. It might not go away, but they have an embedded knowledge how not to click on a suspicious mail, on an attachment, all these kind of things which currently parents are rather clicking, and the kids are saying, Dad, don't do that, kind of thing. So I do think that we have a kind of unique period in time, and we are embarking on a journey where the next generation have better embedded skills, recognizing potential suspicious mails, for instance, in an example. Coming back to the cybersecurity one, it's a global problem. It's both things. That technology can be used for both things. It could be used for defense kind of activities, that you make sure that your service is being used. And I can't tell you, don't have enough time to list up all the kind of advanced technologies we're using to protect assets, data assets of our customers, the technology, the system, measure what's available on the planetary-wide scale, how threats are moving from one region to the other thing. And artificial intelligence is at the center, really at the center, to get this kind of worldwide view, what is happening. And we think we can contribute to this debate. So we are partnering with the law enforcement agencies to take down botnets in a way where we see this global pattern of, let's say, where's attacks coming from. On the other side, you need to think that the dark web and the dark side of business is using the very same approaches. They even have cloud infrastructures on the dark side of economy, using the very same economic argument. If you are an attacker and you need, for a short period of time, a kind of cheap compute, here is my offer that you can rent our computers in a way. Or there's this supply chain kind of methodology in a way. So many of the kind of approaches being taken from the white side kind of the equation are being used on the dark side as well. So this is one challenge in a way. But if you are making this kind of assumption, what is good, what is not good, it's also a kind of ethical, moral question. Who is the judge? What is good? What is not good? Because on one side, maybe in one law, in one jurisdiction, some activities are being considered, and especially in cyber attacks, because sometimes they're calling it in one country forward defense activities, which are considered attacks by other legal systems in a way. So I do think that a couple of things potentially could happen over a period of years. Number one, if there's a global problem, it has been proven over and over again that regionalized solutions don't work well for addressing a global problem. So I do think that a global approach, like for instance a suggestion which our president and chief legal officer Brad Smith made a couple of months ago about the Digital Geneva Convention, that we have a common societal understanding what is allowed in a way that we have basically the same understanding, which then is mapped into local regulatory frameworks, that it is prohibited by law that you're doing something like that, is a precondition that we simplify this complexity we're currently having in a way. Yeah?
I think also if you're interested in the future of applications of artificial intelligence, particularly in cybersecurity, you might Google the DARPA Grand Cyber Challenge, which took place last year. And it was pretty fascinating. It showed that right now, sort of in line with the beginning of this discussion, that humans are still very good, actually better at hacking, per se. Anomaly detection and anomaly reporting, that's something that can be done at better scale, but specific hacking is still much better done by humans. But humans paired with machines, this is sort of the future of exploitation and thus also, I think, defense. So let's go here. We've got not a ton of time left. but we'll try and get as many of you as we can.
Thank you. Milan Ižovica, Mesat and Bratislava. I would like the panelists to dwell a little bit on the concept of responsibility. Okay. Because, you know, when we have a machine follows a command, artificial intelligence makes decisions on its own. Or principally, in other words, when we have a car which is winding on a mountain road, and it sees a person who is in the middle of the road without the ability to stop, so it has two options, either to brake or to take the car off the cliff and kill the operator. And there, you know, we have different notions of responsibility. It could be either the software producer who has programmed the car, it could be the producer of the car, or it could be the operator who has consented to use the car which was programmed in a specific way. But it's still a machine because it was programmed and followed an algorithm. How do we take the notion of artificial intelligence once it has the ability to make decisions on its own? So meaning it's clear of algorithms. So what kind of commandments it's going to follow, and how do we make sure, because we are a very imperfect race, that they use our imperfections in order to get even with us?
Okay, so we've only got about 10 minutes left, so I'd invite everyone to be brief because we want to get to as many questions as possible. Go ahead.
It's a question that we try to address under the liability angle. Just not to wrap up a bit what I said at the beginning on the liability, how we're trying to address it today. It is related to the responsibility ultimately. So first thing to do is to identify where we do have the problem when it comes to the autonomy itself, because there could be defects where the responsibility are identified. So you need to make sure that we have in a complex system, like an autonomous vehicle, where we have artificial intelligence, that we can track. First, you have a tracking system that could identify where is the defect coming from. And there is a part of the defect that is related to the learning, and the learning to learn of the machine itself, where we are in a sort of vacuum today. That's the issue. And the solution, as I said, is a solution that we'll have to look at it from the legal perspective, but also from the economics perspective and from the innovation perspective. So. And that's what we're currently looking at, in a way that we ensure that innovation continues, that the benefits of these systems come to fruition and materialize, and we're not blocked by, over-regulating to make sure it's very safe. Because as Andreas said, with most of the accidents that we have today, for example, in cars, come from the humans. So we think that the safety will be increased with these systems. Okay. And we're looking at the economics, which means most probably will be shared responsibility, and responsibility will go where the weight of the sharing that will go to those who can afford to have take that responsibility, who can afford to take that responsibility in a way that makes this solution economically viable.
Okay.
I think that's the way we're addressing the situation today.
Okay. Very quickly, Ebert and Barrick, go ahead.
Please go ahead. Thank you. Yeah. So I will talk about this from a little bit technological perspective. So basically, when you have a system and you either programmed or trained the system, this system basically is a set of some policies or behaviors or actions or strategies. Like this is what the system is, and it's modeling. And if it is a neural network or something else, it's just a detail, in my opinion. But what basically you have is a set of skills, set of behaviors, set of policies. And so if the manufacturer of a self-driving car programs a car, then trains the car, and the car has a fixed set of skills, so it will not adapt, it will not change this set of skills after it leaves the factory, then I think the responsibility is up to the manufacturer. They must make sure that the car is generalizing to all situations that the trained situations are generalized to the real situations later. Different situation would happen if you will have a robot or a self-driving car that is able to be adapted even after it leaves the factory. So it will be able to receive some command from a user. And for example, if the user will say like, no, just hit that person, like it's okay, then I think the responsibility is on the user. If the user has a way how to adapt this set of policies of the robot, then it's up to him.
Okay. All right. Very quickly.
A quick comment on the technological side, because you used a term which I've come across, which is a challenging term in this conversation. You used the term algorithm. And algorithm is normally being considered, humans are developing the set of instructions that the computer with the proper input data can process, creating a basically predictable output. The way how machine learning is fundamentally different. And initially I said, after 50 years of attempting us humans to understand computers, we are now trying to let computers learn to understand the world. Machine learning is a bit different exactly in this domain. What's happening is that in machine learning we have two phases. The first phase is the machine learns from an initial set of, let's say, weightings and let's say, assumptions. It's learning how to recognize, for instance, a certain thing on a picture. A cat on the picture is a famous example, in a way. You learn it with 100 million pictures, and every time the software gets a picture, you label it saying there is a cat on the picture or not. And at the end of this process, the program writes a program, an algorithm. And the algorithm is supposed to be able to generalize recognition of cats in this example, in a way. So at the end of the day, a machine has written, not the human, but the machine has written the final program which should be able to, like a human, to generalize that you see a cat in a different color you haven't been trained on. You're still saying with 80% probability on a picture you're seeing later on in the usage phase, there is a cat on this picture.
Okay.
And the important thing is on the basically on the continuous learning part. Similar to what Marek said on the manufacturer is delivering 5,000 cars to customers in a certain country. Each customer has a different way of driving, or let's say different environment. One is only driving in the city, the other one on the beach, the next one in the mountains. So the cars adopt and change the algorithms on an ongoing base if they are continuing learning in this context. Right. Which means at the point of accident, you might have 5,000 different algorithms in those 5,000 cars happening in a way. And I do think that's one of the kind of regulatory challenges, then to assign whose fault is it. Was it the training data set? Was it the manufacturer who trained the car? Was it the user saying constantly, go faster, go faster, go faster? It's a shared responsibility, but it has to be discussed what is the proper solution.
Well, folks, we are just about out of time. As we close up, I wonder if I could ask our panelists to, in about a sentence or so, sum up the most important thing that this crowd should be thinking about as they contemplate the future of AI.
Well, it's going to be a long sentence. First, for policy making, what I can speak about, we look at AI under three major angles, if you want. One angle is about innovation and research to make sure that this technology is developed in Europe, we have it, we master it, and that it is widely available. So we're supporting competence centers in all parts of Europe, widely available, and we're supporting the creation of open platforms for AI. We call them AI on demand, so that everyone can try, test, and experiment with the technology. That's very important for us. And we have large programs that we do at EU level and work with the member states. And in partnership with industry, we have a big partnership on robotics with industry with close to 2.1 billion euros of investment in 7 years. So it is very important. That's one thing.
Okay.
Research innovation. Second angle we're looking at is on the regulatory part. And regulatory part, we have four very important areas. Liability is indeed, and responsibility is very important. Second, data and availability of data, which is a big source of AI. Third thing is cybersecurity and the all the security aspects and safety related to data in general. And the fourth is the diffusion of the single market, so we have the regulation across Europe. And the third item is about skills and development of our skills and our workforce. These are the main, I would say, 3 tracks. It was a long sentence.
It was a long sentence. That's okay, Marek. Most important thing that you got to leave to understand about AI.
I think just to expect the unexpected, or like to embrace that there will be surprises coming from AI in coming years, and even surprises that are really hard to anticipate.
Okay, and Andreas.
Quick comment. We see it as an opportunity, and with it comes huge responsibility, not only for us as a company, but I do think for us as a society to find the proper framework and the boundaries what can be used in a way. I've mentioned the partnership on AI, so whoever feels interested to participate, please let me know. And the last thing is I do want to reinforce it's a European topic, and it's for a very particular reason from my perspective a European topic, and I hope that the Commission is continuing shaping the kind of conversation, because we talked about the bigger the data is, the better the machines can learn. And imagine if we have 28, maybe in the future 27 European countries with smaller data sets, AI can't contribute as much to the developments in the individual country, because the fragmentation would reduce significantly the ability of machines to learn in a way. So the scale effects and the network effects to have a kind of common single market spirit kind of approach across Europe is fundamental if Europe want to maintain a competitive edge globally. Thank you.
Okay, well folks, so right now we'd like to invite you to the next session. Starts here on intelligence reform. It starts in this space, the Danube space, after coffee break at about 11 o'clock, which is 11 o'clock sharp, I'm told. Refreshments served in the hotel ground floor. Please join me in thanking our panelists for this discussion. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. All right, that's it.